Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Depending on You by Jessica Aiken-Hall, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Cate. Rain blew in through the open window. It was the only thing keeping me awake. 5 hours on the road with another 3 to go. If it wasn't for the adrenaline, I'm not sure I'd be able to make this trip. 4 lanes of traffic were far more than I could stand. The only saving grace was it was 3 a.m. The silver lining. I leaned into the headrest and laughed. Oh, Patti, you're always in my head. The smile on my face disappeared as quickly as it had arrived when the reason for my impromptu road trip blasted across the radio. I reached over to turn it off. My heart shot into my throat as my knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. The past 20 years had flown by, except the memories still haunted me. I knew it would only be a matter of time before I'd have to pay for what we did. What I did. I've got to make it to Patti before she hears the news. We've always worked best together. If only I'd have moved to New Jersey when she asked. Although, distance wouldn't be able to save me, just like time wasn't. That night plays on rewind in my mind whenever it's quiet. When something goes right in my life, it soon fades away as memories pull me back to 1998. A couple of deep breaths were usually all I needed to get myself back together. But this time I knew it was going to be different. This time, I needed Patti. I slid the mixed CD she sent me for my 20th birthday in and let the music take me back to happier times. Mary Jane's Last Dance lulled me back to a simpler time when we still had our innocence. With the music filling my soul, there was no room for the fear. I'd get through this. I had to. I haven't seen Patti since she came home for her mom's funeral 5 years ago. The vow we made to never let too much time pass between visits kept getting tested. Every visit was separated by more time. Monthly visits turned to yearly and soon stopped happening altogether. Being together was too painful. At least that's how it seemed, or maybe it was only that way for me. As much as I hated to admit it, what happened that night changed us and our friendship. How could it not? There are some things you can never overcome, no matter how tight of a bond you had before. Secrets change everything. They are toxic, bringing negativity with them everywhere you go, sticking to you like glue. Patti seemed to shake it off better than me. Maybe that's why she never wants to talk about it and why she's been pushing me away. Together forever. That was our blood sister's pledge. If we'd have used real blood and not just ketchup, maybe it would have been cemented. The new radicals were right. You get what you give. I flipped to the next song. Tracy Chapman's voice was all it took to make the tears fall. This was our song. The one that gave us hope of better days and the one we'd sing when my mom started drinking. Again. All we needed was a fast car. Ironically, what we needed would be what stole our freedom. At least mine. Chapter 2. Patti. In a puddle of sweat, the beating of my heart pulled me out of the recurring nightmare, the one I've had for the past 20 years. I reached my hand out looking for Danny, but he wasn't there. I rolled over to his side of the bed and nuzzled my face into his pillow, inhaling his familiar scent. Remnants of the dream twisted with the reality of what happened. After all these years, I'm not even sure anymore. I've never been able to tell where the truth ended and the lies began. And so was my life. Visions of Cate and me carelessly enjoying summer days together brought emotion to the surface. I miss how it used to be. I miss her. Had it really been 5 years since we'd seen each other? I rolled over and watched the ceiling fan spin. What made her stay away? Or the real question, what kept me from going home? I knew the answer to both questions, but I didn't know how to fix it. Running away was always easiest for me. Avoidance fixed nothing, though. It just added to the problem, usually creating new ones. Like straining the most important relationship I've ever had. Sure, I loved my husband, but it wasn't the same. There's just something about sisterhood. Blood. Or not. The journal my therapist suggested I get to write my dreams in caught my attention. All the pages still blank. There was no way I wanted to relive such horrific events while I'm awake. The thoughts have become more persistent now. Not wanting to think about them has stopped being an option. Visions crept in. I never know when I'm going to be back in that cemetery, watching as my life was stolen from me, and there's nothing I can do about it. There wasn't then, either. Sleep was out of the question now, even with hours before my alarm plays this annoying tune. Wrapped in my pink plush robe, I pulled it tight as I looked around the dark room. Something didn't feel right. I couldn't put my finger on it, but an uneasy feeling lingered deep within me. I placed my hand over my heart and closed my eyes. Cate needed me. Chapter 3. Cate. My hand shook as I lifted to knock. 3 solid raps on the mahogany door were all it took for the younger version of Patti stood before me. Hi, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Mom's friend, where I got my stupid name. Katie looked down at her phone and snickered. Nice to see you too, Katie. Can I come in? I took a step forward. She's not here, her eyes still fixated on the screen. She's at work. Where's that? I looked around the yard behind me, hoping for a clue. The library. Katie rolled her eyes. Do you guys even talk anymore? My cheeks flushed as I twisted the jade ring on my finger. Not as much as we should. Are you sure she's at work? Isn't that her car? I pointed to the minivan I parked behind. Katie poked her head past mine. Huh? Maybe she is. She turned her head and hollered. Mom! Patti strolled into the living room wearing a fluffy pink robe. What's the matter with you now? Katie shook her head and walked past her mother. You have company. Cate? Patti covered her mouth. Hey, can I come in? The tears began to fall before she answered. I'm in trouble. Patti met me on the doorstep and wrapped me in her arms. Oh, Cate, I knew something was up. I leaned into her and sobbed. She held me tighter as my body heaved. I don't know what I'm going to do. We'll get through whatever it is together, just like we always do. Patti smoothed my hair. Come on, let's get inside so we can talk. I followed Patti into the kitchen where she took out 2 mugs and filled them with coffee. I watched her every move and thought about all the time we had lost together. Patti, I don't know if I'm going to make it. She turned around with the mugs in each hand. Sit down and let's talk. She set the cups onto the table and pulled out a chair for me. Here, have a seat. I looked around the room. I don't know if that's a good idea. This isn't something I want everyone to hear. I steadied myself on the table. Katie's the only one home right now, and I can guarantee she won't hear a word we're saying. Patti smiled. You're safe here. She put her hand on my back and guided me to the chair. I sat down and sat on my hands as my foot tapped. I'm terrified, Patti. I don't want to go to jail. What are you talking about? She leaned forward with her elbows on the table. They're opening the case back up. They're going to know what I did. I squeezed my eyes closed. I can't go to jail. Not now. Dad needs me. You're not going to jail. They're not going to find anything, just like they didn't back then. Patti took a sip of coffee. Before setting the cup down, she tilted her head. What do you mean your dad needs you? He's at home on hospice. I should be there with him now, but I had to come see you. What's wrong with him? Patti set her mug down and leaned her head back. You should have called me. I could have come to you. I didn't want to bother you with this again. I rubbed my forehead. Sammy won't be able to handle it if I'm gone. Is she with him right now? Patti turned her head to look at the clock. We can get back there by dinner time if we leave now. I shook my head. No, you don't have to come. I can take care of it. Patti stood up and tied her robe. No, I'm going with you. I just need to let Danny know. It's not like anyone will miss me here. She picked up her phone. I'll be right back. Go use the bathroom if you have to, so we can leave as soon as I'm packed. I tried not to listen to their conversation, but as Patti's voice became louder, it was hard not to. I stood up and stretched, releasing some of the tension I'd been holding on to since hearing the news. The refrigerator was covered in photos of Patti and her family. Happy, smiling faces looking back at me. I was grateful I hadn't destroyed everything for her. Under one of the photos was a picture of Patti and me. I took it off and rubbed my finger over our faces. It had been a long time since I'd seen those girls. Carefree and full of possibilities. It was before everything changed. Before I lost myself and my best friend. In an instant, It was all taken away. Are you ready to go? Patti had a duffel bag on her shoulder and a suitcase in her hand. Are you sure you should come? It sounds like you should stay here. I focused my attention back to the picture. Yeah, it's fine. She waved her hand in the air. It's not like he's ever home. I held the photo out for her to see. I miss these girls. She smiled. Me too. Let's change that. I returned the photo. How? I'm all washed up. That's far from true. You're beautiful now just like you were then. Patti handed me one of her bags. Here, help an old lady out. You can't say those nice things about me and then call yourself an old lady. It doesn't work like that. If I'm supposed to believe I'm beautiful, then you have to too. Fine. Patti rolled her eyes and laughed. But have you seen this ass? It's huge. She slapped her butt. Knock it off. You're beautiful. Tell that to my husband. She took a box of granola bars off the counter and turned off the kitchen light. So speaking of you being fine as hell, have you heard from? No, I don't have time for that in my life right now or ever. Besides, he's married. I followed Patti to the door. Oh no, he's not. She bobbed her head. Him and Cassandra got divorced. Really? How do you know that? Facebook. We've kept in touch over the years. They never had any kids. I knew he didn't love her. He's always had his heart set on you. You're insane. It's been decades. I'm sure he's over me. I opened my trunk and put Patti's bag inside. That's not what he said. She shrugged. He loved you. He asks about you every time we talk. Has he reached out to you? I'm not on Facebook. I don't have enough time for my own drama, let alone everyone else's. Maybe you are an old lady. She grinned. Do you want me to drive? I know how much you love it. I tossed my keys to her. Maybe being an old lady isn't such a bad thing if it comes with a chauffeur. I can get us there in 6 hours, give or take a little. Patti got in and adjusted the seat. Will we arrive alive? I fastened my seatbelt. Only time will tell, she laughed. Yes, of course, I know some tricks to avoid some of the traffic. We're fine. Should we make sure Katie's okay before we go? She's fine. She drives now, so she's never home anyway. It's a miracle she was home this morning. Patti backed out of the driveway. I don't blame her. I wouldn't want to be home either. What do you mean? I kicked the bags of trash out from under my feet. Danny and I haven't been getting along lately. I guess there's been some yelling. She straightened the wheel and slid on her sunglasses. It's what happens when you're married for as long as we've been. No, I don't think that's how it works. I looked out the window, regretting I had added my 2 cents, but I wouldn't know. Yeah, married life isn't all it's cracked up to be. At least it's not what I had expected. You were the smart one. Single and free. Must be nice. She turned and smiled. Oh yeah, it's a blast. You should envy me. I get to live at home with my dying father and annoying little sister. When did you move back home? Patti glanced over the top of her sunglasses at me. I lost my job in my apartment soon after. I never planned on sticking around Lawrenceville, but then Dad got sick, and then... Where are you going to go? I never thought you wanted to leave town. That's why you didn't move to New Jersey with me. I don't think I'd last in a place like this. Everyone is on top of each other, and I can't stand the traffic. I'd have to walk everywhere or be in a constant state of panic. It grows on you, Patti shrugged. Let's listen to some music. What do you have in here? I turned on the stereo. Sound familiar? Oh my God, I can't believe you still have this. She reached over and turned up the volume and started singing along. I'm surprised it still works. I listen to it when I'm missing you, which is all the time. Should have made one of these for me. I haven't heard this song in forever. Patti tapped her thumbs on the steering wheel to You Ought to Know. I forgot how much I love Alanis Morissette. She does have some great songs. I leaned my head back and was transported back to our last summer together. Before everything changed.